Diego. Joined by Donnie Dee from the San Diego Rescue Mission and Jaron Wilson, who's the president of our Police Officers Association. We're here for our final segment together. Again, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. One of the things that it struck me as we were talking earlier, you're both on different sides of the equation, but yet it's so important that we have to work together. Donnie from the service standpoint and the life-changing standpoint of the Rescue Mission, and Jared with our officers that are out there ensuring and protecting our quality of life and enforcement. I'll throw it out to both of you. How do you work together? How do you make that happen? Because I can imagine that sometimes it's maybe a little difficult.
I think all the service providers and city staff and police officers, I think we're all working hard trying to figure out this issue. I think there's some things that are preventing us from being able to work together, and I believe that we got to build a better system and we have to have police enforcement. And I think those two things working together are going to allow us to change the state of homelessness. I don't want anybody that's living on the streets to go to jail, but we got to put a stake in the ground. You can't live on the streets. This is not good for you. It's not healthy. It's not safe, and it's not good for the rest of us that are living here too, as your neighbors. And it's not being a good neighbor living on the streets. And so we have to put a stake in the ground that's just not allowed. And as service providers, we got to do more at building trust and getting them off the streets into programs. And if you resist services, then the police have to do what the police do.
Jared, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Our service providers are fantastic in the city of San Diego. We just need more of them, just like more police officers. And our goal is always, like Donnie said, to make sure people get help and get off the streets before we ever get to that enforcement posture. Yeah. And that's unfortunately what we're tolerating right now is going to lead to more problems because people are using drugs on the streets. We're not getting them mental health treatment.
Well, I think you're both touching on something that I think really gets to the crux of this debate as you talk to a lot of people in San Diego and across California, which is should we intervene? Should we get in there and say, no, you don't have a right to sleep on the sidewalk in front of somebody's house or business. You need to go use some of the shelters. Or do folks have a right to do that? I mean, there's folks on both sides of that coin. I know I feel very strongly about that we have to get in there and do that. But your thoughts on, intervention versus just hoping somebody is going to change?
I'll take that one. Our public spaces belong to all of us. It belongs to our children. It belongs to our next generation. It belongs to families. And we cannot see these public spaces to people who want to use drugs, people who want to live in them and spread out encampments there. It looks like a third world country in some places in the city of San Diego, and we cannot allow our city to turn to that. It ruins our livelihoods for our small business owners. It ruins the livelihoods of the people who live there. When we have police officers escorting school children down the middle of a pothole-filled street because they're scared of the people on the sidewalks, is that the society that we want to build for our children? And the answer is no. We have to hold people accountable for their behavior and their actions.
Donnie, intervention.
Absolutely. I think that needs to be done in a compassionate, dignified way. It is our city. These are our streets. This is the place where we've raised our kids, and many people have born and raised here, and so we care about this place. And I think that not only is it, the place where we live, but it's not what's best for the person experiencing homelessness. People are dying on the streets. The average person, the average male living on the streets, life expectancy is 10 years less, and for a woman it's 20 years less. And so all the data is there, all the research is there. We have to intervene and get them help because they haven't been able to help themselves. And I think as a society, as a compassionate society, with all the resources and talent that we have, we got to be able to figure that out.
Well, I'll tell you, San Diego was on the forefront of making some significant changes several years ago, and it seems like there's a lot of gridlock that is happening right now. One of the things I'd like to ask you both, if you were a mayor, you were in charge, what do you think we ought to be doing differently? What are some of the things that you would like to see our city take steps to do with one goal? How do we make a difference on the streets in 30 seconds each?
Our approach is very decentralized right now, and so because of that's an advantage in some businesses, but our approach to homelessness is decentralized, so who really owns the problem? I would pull all the providers together, and we would talk about less services, more outcomes. And the outcomes need to be getting people off the streets immediately and getting people off the streets permanently. And you as a service provider are going to be held accountable to that. The showers are great, the meals are great, the beds are great. Love that. But this is about getting people off the streets. And because we've put a stake in the ground as a city, you don't get to live on the streets.
Jared Wilson, final word.
I think a lot of our problem is people who come here for our good weather and are homeless from somewhere else. The studies show that 80% of people become homeless here in San Diego. But the reality is you can stay here a week in a single residency occupancy hotel and now you're San Diego to become homeless here. So that's, the semantics are not friendly towards that. We have to reunite people with where they came from, with their support groups and their connections. We cannot allow people to use hard drugs on our city streets. We need enforcement on that. We need accountability. We need our officers on the streets and more service providers and more beds. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need to start heading in the right direction.
Well, I'll tell you, I think more and more folks are agreeing with both of you, which is it is not compassionate to let somebody die on our streets, certainly. And then if we don't intervene, we're not going to break that cycle of addiction. If we don't intervene, we're not going to get folks that have mental health issues or duly diagnosed off the street into a great place like the Rescue Mission where you can get back on your feet. And the more we do that, of course, the more that frees up our men and women out there who are, spending so much time on homeless issues to do other things that they rightfully should be doing. But it takes all of us working together. And in a final segment here, I guess what's the outlook? Are we positive? Can we turn this around?
I believe that we can. I think it's going to take rehabilitation. That's the word. I don't think that there's a quick fix. This is a complicated issue, but if we can be more committed as a society to enforcing when necessary, because you don't get to resist services, and for those that are ready to get off the streets to actually do significant rehab, which means we're addressing the issues of the heart, we're getting you into a program where we can fix the things that have led you to a life on the streets. I believe that we can change the state of homelessness, measured by less people living on the streets in the future than there is today, because we're not going to eliminate homelessness. I do think we can change the state of it.
It's about outcomes. Jared?
I think it's absolutely going to get changed. I think people who live here, people who visit here, people who own businesses here are tired of how it is, and we cannot go on living this way. And our society will not succeed with the way downtown San Diego looks today. And it will change because people will make it change.
Well, two people who are on the front lines of trying to make a change on our streets and saving people's lives. Thank you both for being with you this morning and sharing your views. And best of luck. We need you out there being successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this morning's edition of San Diego People. Join us tonight for the KUSI News at 6, 10, and 11.
This week on Good Morning San Diego, the end of Title 42 looms near, what local borders look like, and what's going to happen to the immigrants crossing into the U.S.
Plus, the tallest full-scale building ever built on an earthquake simulation.